everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for What's Your Why Wednesday. I'm Laura Brandao, and I am joined today with the lovely Brie Fletcher. She is the Chief Operations Officer and the co-founder of Lotus Financial Network. All right, Brie, so thank you so much for joining us. And, knowing your why is so valuable to us in the mortgage industry because a lot of times, regardless of why we came into the industry, our why changes over time, especially the longer we're in the industry. So I would love to hear from you. Number one, how did you come in? I always love that story. How did you come into our industry? And then what's your why now as to what keeps you here?
Well, how I got into the industry is pretty simple. Fresh out of high school, started out in the banking side at Wells Fargo, and then I just adopted so well to the loan side products, and I was always getting recognition for selling those products, bringing that clientele, and I was like, hey, I'm really good at this. I'm gonna stick to it because hey, why not, right? And so I just progressed from there, go from different company, and then the economy shutdowns. I mean, I started at Wells Fargo fresh out of high school. I would say, well, not fresh, but 2005, which is a long time ago. And so I've seen a lot of areas of the market in the industry, in our economy, the crash, the huge rise now, and it's like all these crazy roller coasters. And so I just, I feel like I'm one of those people where when I find something I'm really good at, I stick to it. It is like loyal to a fault situation, to where I'm kind of, and not that I put myself in a box, but that I want to know everything about that particular thing and become the absolute expert that I can possibly be, so that I can help more people, really, and not just consumers, but people within my same industry as well.
Absolutely. So let's go back. So 2005, this of course is during a crazy busy time. We had lots of activities.
Like it is now.
Yes, it was very similar. It's actually very similar. So lots of people buying homes, right? I mean, it was a very busy time during that time. All right. So here you go. You're in this busy time, and then of course the crash. Okay, so a few years later you have the crash. So at that moment, here you are, you're a young lady, early in your career. Where did you have that moment in time where it was kind of, do I stick on this path as this crazy industry is going through this down? Do you second guess and say, maybe I should do something else that isn't as volatile at this time? Or did you say, like you said, you kind of jump in and you want to be the best at whatever it is you're doing? Did you lean in more? So what happened during that time?
I would say, to sum it up, I really leaned in more. I was in the industry before licensing was required. And then in the middle of that huge growth, I don't know if I'm allowed to name drop, but when I was at Quicken,
okay,
the place I started at as an exclusive just loan officer in 2008, March 2008. And so shortly after I started, it was like, okay, within later on that year, everybody has to be licensed now. And, so going through all of that. Meanwhile, doing different types of transactions, learning how to sell. But Quicken does a really good job at training people on helping the client to understand why they're doing what they're doing. In return, I understood why it is I'm doing what I'm doing. It kind of worked hand in hand. And I had, a transaction or a couple of them where it was very impactful, not just on the client themselves, but me. I'm like, wow, I really helped this person. Like, if it wasn't for me, I don't know what these people would have done. And I would hope they would remember me forever.
I love that. And I love how you kind of tied that together. You said, first I learned, of course, what to do. Then you learned why you're doing it. And not just for the family. Of course, the family has their why, but you also understood the why. So do you have a particular situation that maybe you can give us one of those impactful moments where you helped a family that kind of tied that together?
Yeah, actually I do. I don't remember a whole lot because it was crazy chaos during that time, but there was this one family. It was an older couple, fixed income, looking to hopefully, even with the downturn of their home's value, with the market crash and everything, really hoping to get out of a program that they had got themselves into, previously, which was one of those negative amortizing balloon arms, like the worst possible program you could probably think of, taking a risk. And that predicament was put in my hands to say, hey, girlfriend, you're the expert, can you help us? So, we went through the process and everything, and things were going okay. But then, wham, we got hit with a ton of appraisal conditions. This family lived in Pennsylvania, and we were doing FHA, and it was a really older home. And so you can imagine the types of old things that FHA will call out on, such as chipping, peeling paint, that awesome condition we all love so much. So I was like, what the heck, where is this? I looked at the photos and I'm like, it's in a window in between both panes. They had gotten double pane windows once upon a time, but I don't know what happened. Maybe they just added a pane or something, but in between, I don't know if maybe it was moisture, who knows? But there was a peeling paint, and the appraiser literally called that out and was not willing to remove it. Like, really, how could that possibly be a problem? Because it's in between, like it's not, nothing can happen. Anyways, we had to figure out how to fix it. And so, in between that came a lot of anxiety and panic from the family. And I'm having to be the savior, counselor, therapist through this whole thing. And they were like, we had to educate ourselves on why it's important. Like, yeah, seems really, really like a catastrophe, but honestly, it's really just a minor inconvenience. And they actually came up with the idea to break one of the panes off, scrape and peel the paint. And they were like, we'll just replace that window later. We really need to get out of this program. They saw the reward. And because I saw it with them and we were in it together, we got it done. I got them out of that program. I was able to keep them in their home because they were afraid they were going to have to leave their home that they had lived in for so long and raise their kids in. And so it was a really meaningful transaction that I'll remember forever. I don't know if they remember me, but hey, it doesn't matter. That's kind of one of the things that keeps me going. I'm like, if I can help people like that and help them keep their most biggest financial asset, their most prized possession, most people, that's it.
Absolutely. I mean, think about that situation, Brie. You had a family, right? Like you said, they're an older couple that raised their kids in this home. They were probably there for many years. They got put into one of those predatory type loans, during a time that was crazy. And maybe, listen, we all know that nobody expected the market turn to happen, right? So everyone expected that the equity was going to keep building and we were putting everyone in these programs that would help them. But ultimately, the market turned and it went against us. So here we were, right? A lot of people left our industry. A lot of people said, nope, this isn't for me anymore. I'm going to leave, right? But we stuck with it and we stayed true to it. And your value of taking that family through a complicated process, because think about it, the process they probably had to get that other loan was probably easy, right? They probably didn't need a lot of documentation. They certainly didn't need an FHA appraisal to come out and look in between the window panes. So they were probably confused. They probably didn't understand, why is it so much harder this time for me to get this loan, where last time it was easy peasy. I barely had to do anything, right? So how do you, as an expert in our industry, as a leader, how do you recommend working with our families when you have these difficult situations to get them through? Because it is challenging, right? Like, I mean, look at right now. Now we're in another crazy market that you have to explain to families that don't win bids, right? They're trying to put these offers in and there's so many bids. How do you recommend people guiding their families through and focusing on their why to ultimately get whatever it is they're trying to achieve?
I think I share a little bit of myself with them, and maybe sometimes I will tell a little story about, maybe a hard time that I had, just so that they can build that trust with me to help them through it. Because sometimes people resist just from lack of trust, or they just can't relate to you, and they don't know if you're going to guide them into the fires of hell, or if you're going to actually show them the light. And so I think that I get a little personal with them sometimes within, limitations. And I show them the bigger picture. I help them understand why it's important to focus on the end result and the bigger picture, and also to reassure them that I am here to help them and to go through all of that with them every step of the way. And that really seems to go a long way with a lot of families who are doing a complicated transaction or putting bids that they're just not getting. And I'm like, hey, I'm frustrated too with you. I really want this house for you. I know your story. You want this for, your kids or whatever their story is. Digging deep is really important. If you don't get to know your client's situation, how can you possibly empathize with them when catastrophe happens like this, with a crappy market or crazy appraisal conditions?
Yeah, that is so valuable. And you're correct. No one wants to do business with a robot, right? Now, yes, we want technology and we want to make the process easy. That part of it, yes, we all in the year that we're in, we need that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to have that personal relationship also to be that guidance and that coach to walk them through the process. And especially when something does go not as planned, right? Because without that connection, what would be the reason to have the person stay with you, right? So how do you continue that relationship? So okay, now we've gone through this process, they won the bid, you got them the home. So what do you do in your business to stay with your families after they close, or how do you them to them beyond that?
That's a really good question. We try to remember little things about them. There's the birthdays, or sometimes we even interact on social media, and it's really hard when you do a lot of business. I'm not gonna lie, like anybody who says, oh, that's not hard to stay in front of your entire client database is lying, because it is difficult. But to make a conscious effort to just remember little details, even if it's not a birthday, maybe it's, I don't know, something that you guys had talked about. It just depends on the relationship that you've built with that person. That's going to pave the way for how you're able to continue to walk with them through their journey afterwards, after the loan closes. So I don't have a particular way, because it really just depends. But I think that just maybe reaching out if there's ever an opportunity, maybe asking for referrals, maybe just setting up email drips or things like that. Those can go a long way just to help you streamline staying in front of your client. Because even if it's not super personal, where you didn't manually reach out, you took the time to set them up on a drip. I mean, that's half the battle right there.
It is.
And then just pay attention to those responses. If they do get in contact with you, make it mean something. Like, wow, I'm so happy to hear from you. Didn't you just have a birthday? Like, just stuff like that. Right. Hey, isn't it your guys' anniversary just passed or coming up? Or how was that trip? You know, maybe you remember what the reason they were taking cash out for. They really wanted to go on a honeymoon. I don't know.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I mean, the world is different from, okay, let's go back to the 2005 or 2007 and that. I mean, you didn't have social media that, I mean, I guess there was MySpace or something like that back then, but it really wasn't like social media where you connected to these families. And, you know, now in 2021 and beyond, we actually have an advantage from those years in the past where you actually can connect to these families and you can see what's going on in their life. Like you can see, oh, somebody had a baby or somebody got engaged or they got married or I mean, right? So it's actually, I mean, I say it all the time. It's like, my God, it's such a different world now in a good way, because years ago it was like, oh, I have to call the Smith family. Well, nobody's really calling anyone nowadays, right? You're texting or you're sending an email or you're sending a note or you're communicating on social, which is fabulous. It absolutely is. So you're in a very exciting time right now. I know that I met with Leroy and you guys are in this brand new venture of Lotus Financial Network. So tell me how that came about and what do you guys, you know, tell me what you're doing at Lotus.
Well, we first got in business together in February 2017.
Okay.
Throughout our journey, we've experienced a couple different retail lenders, a few actually, and you know, going from to each company, there were different things that appealed to us so that we could grow, like to our bigger picture. And mostly it was Leroy's vision that kind of took the lead on making those jumps and changes and everything. And eventually we realized, like, you know, with our mission and everything of wanting to make home ownership affordable for everybody and to not be put in the category of being a predatory lender when it comes to like interest rates and price gouging and stuff like that. We were like, you know, we're probably not going to be able to accomplish that goal on the retail side. Let's check out the broker side. It was a huge leap for both of us because neither of us had ever been on the broker side before. We've always just been part of those big banks, those bigger lenders. And so it took a real big leap of faith for both of us. You know, throughout the journey, we've gained a lot of really awesome team members within our team. We've lost a lot of really good ones. But getting to the point that we're at now, we realized that, you know what, we really need the leverage and we really want to build, but how can we do that and pay ourselves to support our families and build this legacy that we're trying to build if we're having to share a large chunk of our earnings with somebody else or a bigger company? How can we run this ourselves and keep that and use that money to build? Yep. And so that was really the biggest point. And so we're like, you know what, we just peeled back the books and we're like, can we make this happen? And in October, we just decided to pull the trigger on applying for a business license. As far as the name, it took several months to like figure out a name. And I don't know, I had this like epiphany maybe, but I was like, hey, what do you think about I think I was going through like a big
You were in a Zen.
my Zen phase. Yes. I'm, you know, back and forth. 1 minute crazy, next minute Zen. But I was like, what about Lotus? And so what I did is I did some research on other companies who had that in their name and looked at their mission. I was like, that really makes sense. That really resonates with ours and what we're looking to accomplish in a way. And how, you know, obviously we would put that in our own words, but at the end of the day, the lotus flower, it's a symbol of new beginnings. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and so I thought that was perfect. And I, you know, shared it with him and we both agreed that was going to be a really perfect name for our company. And then So here we are. We're still very brand new. We didn't even start getting, I don't think we got our license active until February. And already we're helping so many families, and it's just really wonderful to see things kick off the way that they have.
So what is your mission at Lotus?
Currently, we're still working on building it. It's so brand new, but currently it's, oh gosh, it was making your dream of home ownership bloom was kind of like.
I love it. I love it.
And then we have and then I came up with, because I have my employee orientation handbook thing.
Yeah.
And in one of the slides, the PowerPoints was, different things. And one of them was values, like core values.
Yeah.
And I'm like, gosh, I don't know. And then just light bulb, why don't we just do one of those acronym things from Lotus, LOTUS? And so I just was did that, and that's how we, instilled the values, and we're just gonna basically run with that for a while. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how we're just getting started. It's so fun though. I really like all the new business building stuff. It's fun to me.
It's very exciting. I mean, obviously you guys have the experience of, you've learned so much, you've had great opportunities in your career, and you've gotten to the point that this is the next stage of your journey, right? So that's the way you look at everything, right? Is that, everything was a learning experience. You learned what you liked, you learned what you didn't like, right? You learned what you could expand on, all of those things. And now you guys have come together as a team to be able to do it your way and take those lessons and build upon it. And ultimately, you are trying to provide, great loan programs and great affordability options for people to be able to get generational wealth. We know that when you purchase a home in that family, automatically you have building generational wealth. And that is life changing to all of those people out there. That's their why, right? That's part of their why for their families. All right. So Brie, you are awesome. This is fantastic. We're so excited for you and Leroy. I know you guys are just going to have the ultimate success and change lots of families' lives. So one last question of what impact, I don't even want to use the word impact. I love legacy. So what legacy are you building for the world, for your family? What's your legacy?
Well, obviously, I'd have to say my daughter, because hold on. I had an animal messing with my light.
Oh, I was like, either your daughter's there or there's okay.
Crazy animals in my house. I'd have to say my daughter. She's almost 8, and it's just been me and her since day one. And I just really want her to gain an example from me that, hard work pays off, that, independence and persistence and, pushing through the hard times, that's just the way of life. And if you face those challenges, that's okay, because she's witnessed a lot with me. We've just been our little 2-person team, since I brought her into this world. And it was hard for me in the beginning because I've been a single mom since day one. So
it's difficult. That is definitely challenging. And how, especially in the mortgage industry, because it is a, constant up and down and in and out and highs and lows and, all of that.
When I had her, I was on the processing side. I had left sales to go to processing. Because again, I wanted to know the everything about mortgage, everything. And so I went to processing. And so during my journey there, went with the different companies. Well, I had found out I was pregnant and then started with a new company. Well, because I was already pregnant when I started, I didn't get benefits.
Oh, no.
Like the maternal leave. I was able, fortunately, because I became a favorite, I guess, they kept my position while I took the 12 weeks off. However, I didn't get paid. So what I had to do while I was pregnant is work my little tail off so that I could save up 3 months worth of bills and expenses to pay so that I wouldn't have to worry, so that I could just focus on that relationship.
Wow, Brie, that's tough.
Yeah, and there's no help. There's never been any help. And I know a lot of other women and, have been in my shoes and are in my shoes right now. And I think that's also another part of my legacy. It's not just for my daughter, but it's also creating inspiration and opportunities for other women out there, single moms or just single women or young women who are
I'm telling you, number one, it starts with you sharing your story. You sharing that story and even putting it out here and having others hear that, listen, you started a new job, you found out you're pregnant, you don't have any leave, any paid leave. So you have to think in your head, well, there's no option here. Obviously, a baby is being born. There's no going backwards. So a baby's coming. What do I do in order to do this? And you had to think, problem solve. How do I do this? I'm going to work. I'm going to figure it out. I have to save. I have to plan. I have to know that I'm okay during this time. And I have a feeling that's kind of been your life, I'm assuming.
It really has. Even after, let's just say fast forward, I had her, and 2 years later, I'm like, I really want to get out of this apartment. I want to have a house for us. I want her to have more space. I want her to have a yard. And so my credit wasn't the best, but fortunately, I had been in the industry for so long that I knew how to improve it. I knew what I needed to do. But oh my gosh, how was I going to get all the money to pay off things that I needed to do to fix my freaking credit? And, so then I reached, out to my mom and I said, Mom, like, I have this opportunity to take on more files, but I'm going to have to work overtime in addition. Can you help out with, my kids? So can you like babysit her? And I mean, there were times where I would leave for work and get to work at 8:30, not leave the office until 9 o'clock at night. Lights were already off. Everybody was gone by the time I left. And I had a 1.5-year-old at home with my mom. My mom's, staying up with her, staying up late till I finally get home. My commute was 45 minutes to get home. And just after several weeks of that, I was able to bonus out like a max bonus 2 months in a row, which gained me about $6,500 extra within 2 months of extra cash. I was able to use that, pay off the debt. And it's just those sacrifices. It sucks. It really does suck getting uncomfortable and having to do that. You don't want to. But I was focused on the end result, and I knew that it was going to provide just that next step of a better life for her. And also, I guess, mold me and push me to the next level of like my personal growth too. So that was another, and it's just never stopped. There's just always been something where I've had to be like, what is the solution here? And what do I need to do? And I think that's how I've become just such a very good, like, operational director person.
Well, but that's what operations is. It's problem solving, because you have things coming at you at all times, and you just have to think on your feet of, okay, this is what I've got. I can't necessarily change this, but I can figure out a way to make it better, or I can figure out a way to learn from this experience so the next time the same thing doesn't happen, right? And I will tell you, Brie, I mean, number one, very important, continue to share your story. So that's one, because that is building the legacy, because you don't know who else out there needs to hear it. Because many times people are in a situation and they think that there's no way out, or they think, well, this is my problem and nobody else has ever experienced this.
Yeah.
Usually that's not the case. Usually there's always someone else that has either gone through that or something similar or something worse. So you sharing your story is extremely important. And you saying, oh, I'm not done yet. Okay, I finished that. I did that. Now I figured this out. Now I'm going to try this. Now I'm going to, and your daughter having, having that motivation of taking care and being that example, right? That's what you're doing. You're being the example because you're building up that next wonderful, powerful woman that will be, that next generation. You're telling her there's no limits. You can do this, whatever this is, right? Whatever her desired dream of life is, she can do it. And that is an extremely powerful legacy that you are right now in motion creating. That is awesome. Way to go. All right, Brie, thank you so much for being with us. I am truly just honored that you shared your story with us. I know you and Leroy are going to crush it, so continued success in the business and your personal life and with your daughter. We wish you all the best always.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.